But folks, let's not do too much. Welcome everyone. Today's ThursdAI, October 24th. My name is Alex Volkov. I'm an AI evangelist with Weights and Biases. And Weights and Biases is the company that brings you the show for Reach the Week via me and letting me do this. And so huge thanks to them as well. And I'm here joined on stage by multiple folks, co-hosts, friends. First of all, we got Simon Willison, returning co-host, which is incredible. Already buzzing with excitement because we have breaking news. We have Wolfram, Raven Wolf, and we have, for the first time on stage, Joe Heidsberg from AI Thinkers, which you're more than willing to give a follow. You guys maybe heard and remember my impassioned speech about opening an AI Thinkers where you are locally. So many folks reached out to me, Joe, by the way, and said, "Hey, how can we do this?" That's great. We have you, and we'll cover this maybe down the show a little bit later. But also, I'm here because we have a Thinkers tonight in Seattle.
That's right.
Yeah,
looking forward to it.
But also, we want to mention that we have a hackathon coming up. Weights and Biases is hosting AI Thinkers in San Francisco next week. Dates are November?
It's November 2nd and 3rd, all-day hackathon on both days. We've got some great people coming, judges, like we've got Rahul from Julius will be a judge. We've got one of the engineer who built agents for Replit is there judging. Alex from Weights and Biases, obviously, Thursday. We've got multiple engineers from Google, Gemini, so it should be a great.
It's going to be super awesome. I'm going to do a demo that you guys will definitely enjoy. So if you're in the Bay Area, San Francisco, despite the fact that Anthropic has a potential competing event for one of those days, we're definitely the place to be. Send me a DM if you can't get in, but you should be able to get in. There's still limited spots available for the hackathon.
Definitely.
And it's going to be so awesome. And I'm going to tell you about my hackathon experience from the weekend. Hopefully I'll have time about this. So to hopefully get you excited about the idea of coming and hacking with all those people. Now, with the niceties and the intros out, we have some breaking news. Let's start strictly with them, and then we're going to move to open source. So let's do breaking news. AI breaking news coming at you only on ThursdAI. Yes, breaking news. Simon? Yes, please do, man.
So, Anthropic, about 8 minutes ago, launched their equivalent of ChatGPT code interpreter. I'm not even sure what they're calling it. It's a little preview feature which you can toggle on. And it basically means that you can talk to Claude through their web interface, and Claude can write and then execute JavaScript, including against files you upload to it. So you could upload a CSV file, and Claude can then write some JavaScript which does something with that CSV file, transforms it in some way, and it can even then visualize it using their existing artifact feature. So it's very similar to ChatGPT code interpreter, which is one of my favorite AI features. There's a huge difference here, which is that Claude do it entirely in the browser. With your code interpreter, you're running Python in some virtual machine that OpenAI spin up somewhere for you. Claude doesn't do that at all. It's using web workers as a sandbox. So when you upload files to it, those files are just being read into memory in JavaScript running in your browser. It does its thing. It spits out results. It's fascinating. It's like a totally different architecture from code interpreter, but it gives you many of the same capabilities.
So does that mean, first of all, that's incredible. We saw them running code, but it was only JavaScript code in form of artifacts, so you could run all those apps. Simon, I know you love those. You have multiple ones. I think you mentioned them on your blog every week, here's the ones that I built this week, which is incredible. But now you're saying they're also running sort of back-end code as well.
No, it looks like it's back-end code. It's still running in your browser. It's almost like just a sort of alternative version of Artifact, where regular Artifact, because the great flaw of Artifact has always been that there's no feedback loop back to Claude itself. So Claude can write some code that shows you an interface and does some stuff, and then that opens up and you start fiddling with it. But there's no way for Claude to then see what you're doing with that. And if there are any error messages, Claude doesn't see them. I think they added a feature a couple of weeks ago where you get a little thing that says, click here to paste the error message back into Claude for you. But other than that, it was like a sort of one-way road. Given that, it's amazing how well it worked. This new thing is a full-blown loop. It's Claude can write the code, run the code. It puts console.log statements in the code it's running, and then it gets to see what was logged back to it. So it can use it as a calculator. It can do any calculations or things that JavaScript can do. But it also ships with a couple of baked-in libraries. It's got the PapaParse CSV parsing library. And it's got Lodash as well. But as far as I can tell, that's it. It's very thin on the libraries. and it can't load extra libraries into the system, which is weird because artifacts can.
Mm-hmm.
Artifacts can load things off of CDN.js. The new, whatever they're calling it, Claude thing, can't load additional can't load additional code. So it has to write everything in essentially sort of vanilla JavaScript with a couple of extra pre-available libraries. It's fascinating. Like, it's a very different set of design decisions to what OpenAI made for Code Interpreter.
This is the TLDR of everything that we've covered in this insane, absolutely mind-blowing week of news and updates. We covered every category that we usually cover, and there's been plenty of meat in all of them. So we'll start with open source super quick. We mentioned and celebrated the release of Transformers.js, a new version of Transformers running in JavaScript with support with WebGPU. We had Zenova up here, the core maintainer and the creator, originally talking about the new updates in this library with over 1,200 pre-converted models, and you can run this in Node environment and Dino. So shout out to the Transformer team and Zenova for this awesome release. We mentioned that DeepSeek drops a tiny model called Janus, 1.3 billion parameters. The notable thing there, it understands and generates image and text. So it's multimodal on image and text modality, but also on the output, which is rare and we haven't seen much. And so shout out for releasing this. We also saw that, just as breaking news, Cohere for AI released a series of models called Aya Expanse, which is a 8 billion parameter and 32 billion parameter models focused on multilinguality, specifically serving up to 23 languages, beating Llama 3.1 70B and Gemma, exciting 32 billion parameter model for multilinguality specifically. This was almost all in the open source, and then we moved on to the big companies' APIs, because another breaking news release covered with Simon Willison, the start of the show, is that Claude launches Code Interpreter mode on Claude AI, and unlike the Code Interpreter on OpenAI, Claude runs in the web container and runs with JavaScript code, and it works with existing artifacts feature. Instead of just showing you stuff in artifacts that's in JavaScript in your browser but doesn't know what's going on behind the scenes, this basically closes the loop. And Claude can now print log statement and see what happens when this code runs, and then debug itself as well. Very interesting addition to the Claude news from this week. This is not the only news from Claude. This is like the latest and breaking news one. Claude Sonnet 3.5 and Claude Haiku 3.5 were announced. Sonnet 3.5 didn't get a new version. It's not 3.6, it's not 4. It's 3.5 v2. Claude Haiku was announced. It's 3.5. It apparently beats the previous Opus. Claude Haiku is not released yet. It's only like an announcement. They promised us by end of the month, and the month is ending in 7 days. So Sonnet 3.5, though, is the main model we've talked about, specifically due to two things. First of all, it's significantly more performant. They released a chart, which is the intelligent average score of MMLU Pro and GPQA and Big Bench and AIME, and on that kind of combined score, Sonnet 3.5 was 69.1 points, and now the new Sonnet is 72.1 points. A massive increase in coding ability, benchmarks placing it state-of-the-art, completely beating even O1 Preview, which has test time compute. Wolfram reported the output token limit also raised to 8K. The context window stayed at 200K, which is incredible. I am getting mixed signals in what this model is actually good at. Everybody says it's incredible at coding, but some people claim it's like maybe some more lazy at some points. I heard from a friend of mine who held back benchmarks about scientific reasoning that it absolutely fails. We saw on, I'm not telling you guys this is a bad model, I'm just saying the usual new models are better than the old one paradigm. It seems like potentially this is over. We'll talk about Haiku when it actually releases. The other exciting thing from Anthropic, though, is the computer use API access. They trained a version of Sonnet to run a computer use with multiple tools built in, tools like seeing what's on the computer and controlling this, tools like Bash and code running as well. And we had Killian from Open Interpreter, the project that does this on your computer, tell us how excited Open Interpreter team about this model specifically, because this is unlike any other model we've seen that can do this. Other companies like Adept, apparently OpenAI has been working on this for a while. LAM from Rabbit was promising to do exactly this. It looks like Anthropic just beat all of them to the punch and released this computer use thing that is actually doing some incredible things. And we definitely recommend and encourage everybody to try this out. Don't run this on your computer unless you're absolutely certain what it will do. The examples from the Anthropic were incredible. It ordered pizza for the team while they were working really hard. So really fantastic. My example was it fixed its own thing. So this Docker container didn't work for me. I asked it to fix it and it fixed it. It was incredible. So this was like the main meat of the episode. Worth listening to the conversation with Simon and Killian. Really incredible release from Anthropic. Shout out to the team. We then, in the big companies LLMs, we covered that Cohere released a new multimodal embeddings, Embed 3, for specifically multimodal images. So you can embed stuff like graphs and charts, product images, and design files. Those are not the first multimodal embeddings, but when it comes from Cohere, you know that it's done right. So shout out to them. We also covered that X.AI, Elon Musk's AI company, is releasing their API platform and hinting at a secret vision feature that's coming. They're currently offering Grok 2 beta on there with $5 per 1 million input tokens, $15 for output. This matches GPT-4 prices, and that's not super cheap, but we are thinking that the use cases for this model are different because they are focused on being less restrictive, less whole or monitor models as well. The last thing that we talked about is Apple releasing iOS 18.2 is the next kind of iteration of releases in Apple Intelligence. So we got Image Studio and Genmoji, the ability to generate emojis. We've got Visual Intelligence, which you would be able to pipe into directly with ChatGPT, taking pictures and ask ChatGPT to describe them. And we also got the full ChatGPT integration. If you have the ChatGPT app, you can connect your profile to it, or you can ask Siri to do stuff and it will say, I'm too stupid to do this. Can we go to ChatGPT? And you say yes, it goes to ChatGPT. The cool thing for me there was you don't even have to have an account with ChatGPT. It just works because of the Apple OpenAI collaboration, but you still have to approve it. It's not like Apple's sending all your data. Some people were worried about. In this week's Buzz category, I talked about that the hackathon project that I built with Daniel and Junaid this week got second place in this hackathon. I'm very happy. And we built a robotic arm. So shout out to Le Robot from Hugging Face, which have an open source arm. It's called SO Arm 100. You can buy parts for 3D printing. You can buy them for around $100. You 3D print the rest and build a robotic arm at home. That's what we did during the hackathon. It was incredible. And what we did is connected it to a visual LLM. We had a webcam connected to it, sent it to Gemini Vision, and it took a picture. And we put this robotic arm inside the hand puppet. We animated this hand puppet and made it sound like Gordon Ramsay by cloning his voice on Cortesia. Sorry, Gordon, it was hilarious. And basically this chef cooks you while you cook. Videos are hilarious and we got second place. The reason why this thing is discussed in this week's Buzz category is because this was supported by Weave, our LLM observability framework from Weights and Biases, which is now also multimodal on the audio as well. So we stored all the audio outputs from that model in Weave, and Weave supports you to see and play back everything that's audio generated, which is also helpful for the other release from this week, last week, which is OpenAI giving access to advanced voice mode or in the chat completions API versus the real-time API. We've now supports this as well. The other thing we announced in this week's Buzz, this upcoming hackathon that we're hosting with AI Thinkers in November 2nd and 3rd in our offices in San Francisco. We have limited places still, but please show up. There's going to be incredible amount of very smart AI folks in San Francisco that come and hack with us. I'm going to be a judge there, and there's going to be a bunch of other folks definitely worth coming out for that. I'll add the link in the show notes. So you think this is all, but not. This is like the half of the show. The other half of the show was focusing on vision and video because this week was an incredibly highly packed releases week in the vision and video. It started with Meta releasing a bunch of releases in the visual stuff like Segment Anything 2.1, and there was a new video model from Hyper AI. There was a new video from Rhymes AI called Allegro in the Apache 2. We also had a chat with AJ Jane from Genmo that they released a Apache 2 video model called Mochi 1. Video generator model generates up to 5.5 seconds of video, and it's a 10 billion parameter diffusion transformer. AJ has a large background in this thing. Definitely listen to that conversation. And in the voice and audio category, we covered OpenAI custom voice support via chat completions API. So me and Simon Wilson, we talked about what that means versus the real-time API, but also a highlight from yesterday. 11 Labs created a new way to create voices. Unlike cloning, you'd be able to just prompt voices. If you want a squeaky voice or you want like an accent or whatever, you'd be able to just prompt this now, and 11 Labs will create this voice for you, which is incredible. Because the other thing that we talked about in the video category was Runway's new Act 1 model, a new technology. It's not just text to video. It's a driving video and one image of a character, and they take your emotions, eye lines moving, micro expression, spacing. Instead of doing motion capture or rigging or puppet rigging, where they put like the little dots on the face, this model that does all of this for you and like faithfully represents elements of acting, which is incredible. This, I think, is just an incredible thing absolutely to see, and I'll add some videos of this. It's hard to believe how far we've gotten in AI generation and the replacement of tools. And in the voice and audio category, we also mentioned Moonshine for audio. This is a new model that goes after Whisper in ASR. And Meta Spirit LM, which is a language model from Meta, open source language model for seamless speech and text integration. Shout out to Meta for releasing this work, definitely helps open source. And the last piece, the last thing that we talked about in AI art and diffusion was multiple things was released this week as well. Like I said, crazy week. Stable Diffusion released 3.5, two models, 3.5 and 3.5 Turbo. They're planning to release 3.5 Medium as well. It beats Flux Dev. They only compare it to Dev because open source on aesthetic quality and prompt adherence, or they at least like claim they do. Previous Stable Diffusion, and yeah, we're looking forward for some results from the community about Stable Diffusion 3.5. Shout out to the team. OpenAI released a new sampler paper for a different approach called SAM, consistency models, and we had AJ with his background talk about what consistency models mean. Exciting release, but nothing practical yet, but definitely a paper is worth checking out. Two companies, Ideogram released a canvas interface, which you can mix and match and edit areas of one image in Ideogram, and also Midjourney released an editor, online editor as well.
I've got one more thing for us. Claude 3.5 Opus has blinked out of existence.
What?
But yeah, so the big announcement yesterday was Claude 3.5 Sonnet, the new version, and Claude 3.5 Haiku. They did not mention Opus, and if you go and look on the Internet Archive, 2 weeks ago, Opus was listed as coming this year, and now it's gone. It's disappeared from their website entirely.
Oh, man.
And they've not, to my knowledge, they have not said anything publicly about this, so we're all going wild with conspiracy theories. There's a theory that maybe the new 3.5 Sonnet is actually just Opus, but it wasn't impressive enough, so they rebranded it. But yeah, they've gone completely silent on 3.5 Opus.
Man, Opus disappeared. I saw an engineer, I think Sam McAllister from Anthropic, post something about everybody's asking where is Opus, nobody's asking how is Opus, and I found this like hilarious to me. And now the fact that they disappeared him or them or it or whatever, it's wow, that's so sad. Come on, folks, we need Opus. We need to see this jump through in capabilities, but hopefully. Maybe not this year, but hopefully we'll see it soon.
That's the thing. Like, I'm thinking not this year because, like I said, it said very prominently on the website 2 weeks ago, Claude 3.5 Opus coming this year, and now it's not even mentioned.
Yeah. Well, all right, folks, this has been the TLDR. So here's the opening sound, and we'll dive into open source. Let's go. Welcome to ThursdAI October 24. I'm doing the intro again. My name is Alex Volkov. I'm the AI evangelist with Weights and Biases. We're starting the show with a little bit of a delay, but we're starting. So I think we're going to start with open source super quick because we've covered multiple things in open source. And I think the interesting things, we have two things there. We want to cover that Transformers.js release, and Transformers.js is awesome. No, I don't know if you have time just to come up and talk about this for a bit, but if you are, you're more than welcome. Transformers.js is a library that lets you run AI in your browser, but not only in your browser, now also in Node.js environments as well, like Dino and Ban and Node.js. It has a new NPM package as well. There's all 1,200 pre-converted models as well, but you also can always convert them yourself. And welcome Zenova for a brief introduction. Congrats on the release, man. It's been a while since you've been up here.
Thanks so much. Yeah, most certainly has been very long.
You've been busy.
Yeah. Trying to be. Yeah, it's been almost a year and a half in development. So it's been a long time. Like literally, the last release was like of Transformers.js version 2 was like 6 months ago, and everyone thought the project had gone dark. But if you go to the V3 branch, there's been commits every day, like trying to get this thing working.
Oh, we're sure you're working a lot. So tell us maybe about. I want to hear like maybe 1-2 highlights. Tell me about web GPU support. Maybe this is the biggest thing, no?
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely web GPU support, which on like text embedding models has shown to get like up to 100 times faster. And we've released a lot of other demos showcasing really great performance as well. I mean, like 2.5 mini, like almost 4 billion parameter model running in the browser, blend GPU. at like 90 tokens a second on an RTX 4090, but even lower hardware, getting up to like 50 tokens a second, pretty good. And then I guess other models also benefiting from web GPU, especially vision models, like getting real-time performance for real-time. What is it called? I don't know, vision models specifically, like background removal, depth estimation. Those models getting really good performance. Even models like Whisper for speech recognition, getting real-time performance. We put out a few demos of that, just like as you speak, the model transcribes what you're saying, which is great. And then multimodal models as well.
Oh, sorry. Am I doing feedback for you?
Oh no, my voice.
Yeah.
But and then on top of that, I guess new architectures are supported. Added, it's from version 2. The new models like Florence 2, like the Gemma 2 launch models. Just a bunch of new models, bunch of new tasks that are supported. We released also support for like full-bit quantization running in the browser. So that's on top of version. So version 2 didn't have that. And just a bunch of additions, and we're excited to see that now you can install it under the Hugging Face organ npm instead of Zenova, which is what it used to be.
All right, it moved to the official home of Hugging Face. Well, huge congrats on this release. I wanted to highlight this because I know, like, we've been following and tracking Transformers.js since I think you kicked it off and ThursdAI, and it was incredible to always see. So, huge congrats on this release, man. And we hope to hear soon more news from Transformers. Thanks for coming up.
Alex, it's Alex.
Yo.
Sorry for interrupting. There is an echo.
Echo from
really
my side?
hard. Yeah. I'm not sure from where, but there is an echo and it really interferes with that. Just telling you.
Test. Echo, feedback. 1, 2. Do you fix it?
No, it's fine. It's fine now. It's fine.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I was trying to do some stuff. I apologize. So I'll say this again, if echo interfere this. Zenova Transformers.js version 3 was released. I'm sure it was like tons of hard work. Folks should definitely check this out. If you want to run stuff in your browser, in the privacy of your own stuff, the reason why we talk about small models and their importance is to be able to run them locally, but also this means you can run them in environments like browsers as well. Web GPU support is now coming to many browsers as well. I know there was a Google Web AI Summit recently. Zenova, I think you were there as well. So shout out to the folks who are working on this. It's headed by Zenova and some other folks as well. And we have to move on, but I just wanted to highlight this as well. We're gonna not cover DeepSeek Janus 1.3, although it's super cool, the fact that this model can understand and generate images. We've seen this in the wild as well, but I haven't seen too much open source on this. And Cohere for AI released the new Aya multilingual model, focused on multilingual. Usually Wolfram, maybe you want to cover this for like a minute. Multilinguality is important for folks which languages are not necessarily represented, though sometimes kind of the bigger models do perform okay in multilinguality as well. It looks like they've all been trained, but this model looks like it's highlighting the multilinguality specifically, the training process, etc.
Yeah, that's correct. So they have more languages than usual. So some more less represented languages. I have to look at what they have here. I don't have it open at the moment, but I see the Twitter X news they posted. So the big thing is that they have really focused on making the model better with a lot of languages. So if you need your language represented, check if it is in there, and then it may be one of the best models for you if your language is not in one of the...
There's 23 languages there. Yeah, maybe it's going to be funny to you as it's funny to me. Hebrew is mentioned twice. I don't know why. Maybe it's a typo, but it says German, Greek, Hebrew, Hindi, Indonesian. And so I don't know if they doubled down on Hebrew or not, but it was just really funny. 23 languages from this powerful multimodal. Yam, have you had a chance to look at it? Or previous Aya models?
No, I just want to say that it might be biblical Hebrew, but I'm not sure.
Oh, interesting. It may not be a mistake.
Yeah, I didn't look into it, but there is a difference in data sets. They are completely different data sets, so maybe.
Okay, folks, we'll follow up. And if you know the answer, please leave us a comment as well. And open source, this is it in the open source LLMs. And now we're moving to the place where, like, I really want to talk about the new Claude stuff in Anthropic. So this week, Anthropic decided to tell us, everyone, hey, we're number 2 maybe, but in some places we're definitely the leader. So Claude Sonnet 3.5, which is a favorite model for many, many people, despite the O1 models that was released from OpenAI that were like with reasoning, people still kind of went to Sonnet for code still. We also remember this from the folks on Lex Fridman's show, the Cursor team. They went there and basically, even though one was out with reasoning, they got asked what is like the most preferred model. I think they saw Sonnet 3.5. So now that's the old model. We now have a new Sonnet 3.5, 3.5 V2, if you will. Not 3.6, not 4, not Opus, just 3.5 as well. Simon, have you played with this, and what are your initial thoughts with the new Sonnet?
No, I mean, I mostly spent time playing with the fascinating new computer use feature. The new Sonnet model, I'm a little bit nervous about it because it does seem to truncate things. It seems to be slightly less willing to output like long chunks of code, which is a problem. You know, it's like if I'd built something against Sonnet and now Sonnet is suddenly truncating things. I know Val.town was saying that this is something they've run into already with it. And so I do not like this thing where you release a brand new model and give it the exact same name and version number as your previous model. Like they should stop doing that. That's not useful.
Not software developers don't like versioning changes where actually, so just maybe to mention for folks who don't understand like what we're talking about, the name of the model is Sonnet 3.5, but used via API, there are different versions of models, right? So you can still use the old one, you can still pin your version to the date of the previous one and this new one. This is only like in the naming for general public, maybe, Simon? I don't know like where 3.5 comes in, but yeah, it's weird. And I saw somewhere, I think via they serve this model via Vertex, I believe, and via Amazon Bedrock. And I think on some documents officially from them over there, they call this Claude Sonnet 3.5 V2. I saw this.
Interesting.
Yes.
In the Anthropic API, it's Claude -3-5-Sonnet -20241022 compared to all of that -20240620. So it's got a date as a like 11 character type, so timestamp baked into the version number of 4, 5, 6. And yeah, it's 8 characters. They really shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
But they offer in the API, there's an alias where you do Claude 3.5 Sonnet -latest.
Latest, yeah.
That updated the morning that they released it, they updated that to the new model. So they sort of automatically upgraded everyone to this new model, which according to their benchmarks is better. But according to people actually finding out, it has a few little regressions and weirdnesses that people are just beginning to stumble into.
So I've also noticed like multiple things. So first of all, Sweetbench, I think this takes the highest possible score that we saw on Sweetbench verified. I want to specifically find the exact metric, but on Sweetbench, this model crushes absolutely. On Aider benchmark, if you guys remember AiderChat, this Aider.chat, this is like a agentic code writing framework. One of the more popular things from Aider is Aider benchmark for code editing and code refactoring specifically. And this model also absolutely crushes this on AiderChat. However, I'm starting to see, so on AiderChat, I'll just give you an example. It got 84.2% on Aider code editing leaderboard, and it crushes 0.1 preview, which didn't get up to 80. 0.1, the reasoning model, the one with the multiple tokens, in-first time compute, all the stuff that we talked about. This new Sonnet absolutely crushes this on the code editing. However, on some other tasks, so first of all, I heard from some friends then on some tasks for like writing and scientific reasoning, for example, it fails. I have a friend here in Seattle, shout out to Sam, who has his own like held back benchmarks on scientific reasoning, and this model fails. We also saw this model kind of like flop on Aiden Bench and Arc Prize challenges as well, and kind of like perform worse than the previous Sonnet. So very, very interesting. It's not a unified, this is an absolutely better model. And Wolfram, I would love to hear from you. I know that you have your community and you also have been trying this. What's your current take?
Yeah, I have a lot of points. I will see the most important ones. So about the truncation, what is interesting if it is truncating it, I didn't see that myself, but if it's doing it, it has a raised context, raised output tokens limit. So it's 8K instead of 4K now. So it should actually be better, especially for code where you often have a lot you want to output. So 4096 was the limit before, and now we have 8K. So it should actually be better and not truncate as easily, especially code. So that is interesting if you are seeing that maybe it's a bug or something. But I was happy to see that it has 8K output now. But I didn't test how much of it is actually usable when it outputs. So just the new tokens it generates.
So it could be like lazy error, but it's still it still outputs like way more. So do we ask it or control for it? Like how do we find out how to actually do this?
You can set it as a parameter in the API. So max new tokens or what is it called depends on the backend or your front-end software. So you can set the limit, and it was 4K before. Now it's 8K, but the max tokens for the whole context is still 200,000.
200,000. Yeah. So Wolfram, what's your take on actually using the model as well?
Yeah, it reminded me actually of Nemotron because it has a lot of fancy formatting it's doing, and it started doing roleplay asterisks even in Perplexity where I was using it. So I had to give a special prompt and saying, do not emote. But I have my own prompt, of course, so my Amy is everywhere, and she usually doesn't do it, but that has changed. So I think they have been optimizing for output, like Nemotron does.
Mm-hmm.
The model may not be much smarter, but it's writing better, so people think, oh, that seems better. So that is also an issue here. And the latest tech that is new, because there was just one version before. Now they have the latest tech, so they are probably really going to release more dated versions with the date at the end. But that is what OpenAI is doing too.
You think we got to a point where 3.5 Sonnet is now 3.5 the model, and we're just going to get like updates like we were getting with the 4.0?
Yeah, exactly. So we have been being that there, and they are using it as well. But it's more complicated if you are talking casually and just saying I'm using Sonnet or something like that, because then it's unclear which version it is.
Yes. I remember for a long time people used to say, oh, GPT-4 is not that great, whatever. And then we kept asking, which GPT-4? Because there's been like 10 versions since the first release, and the latest ones are completely different models since the first ones.
Exactly.
So we've got, I found the actual stats, 3.5 Sonnet goes from 33% to 49% on Swebench verified. Swebench is a software engineer verified, I think is the one from OpenAI, I believe. That is a very hard task of performing real software engineering tasks from like GitHub and solving them. And that's a very hard, and this is like state-of-the-art model. It beats O1 on this, and O1 is like a different computer model. And New Haiku is beating 4.0 Mini on different benchmarks as well. I don't believe we got New Haiku though, right? We only got an update release announcement.
It was weird that, like, Anthropic don't normally do vaporware, but yeah, they announced 3.5 Haiku and said it's coming later this month, and there's only 7 days of the month left. So it's kind of bizarre that they didn't just hold on to it until it was actually ready to go.
Interesting. So interesting. The whole thing with Opus 3.5 disappearing, the whole thing with Haiku releasing. Anthropic doesn't usually release models and then say we released it, but no, don't release it. They usually like give us access pretty much straight up. So that's very interesting release from all over from Anthropic. But I think the most important news, and the news that Simon, you're super excited about, and the news that I'm excited to welcome Killian. Killian, you want to say hi to the folks? Now the mic is hot, I think.
Hey, everybody, can you hear me okay?
You guys hear Killian? Yeah.
Yes, we can.
You're getting thumbs up. Okay. So, Killian, if you want to join the actual stage so people can actually like follow you, but they will hear you from this side. So, Simon, I'll start with you, and then folks will introduce Killian. Killian from Open Interpreter that you guys have been doing. You guys have been doing like code running things for a while. So, Simon, would you start us off, and then we'll chat about using computer. Have you been able to run the Docker? Like, what does it look for you?
Yes. So this is a fascinating thing. Basically, they're calling computer use, which is not a great name, but these companies are bad at naming things. And what computer use is it's ways to get the Claude model to remotely control a computer by telling it like saying, go and click on this point, that kind of stuff, which is not a new thing. Lots of people have done this before. And Anthropic, actually, the way they ship this is they shipped a Docker container that you can run on your own laptop. So they, just like with their code interpreter thing this morning, they're staying way clear of sandboxing and running remote code on servers and all of that. They're like, no, you run the untrustworthy code on your machine. And so actually, all they did with the model is they taught the model coordinates. Like models have traditionally, these vision models have been quite bad at saying, click on this exact point. Claude 3.5 Sonnet, with this new mode, is now able to return accurate-ish coordinates. So it can say, click the mouse here, where here is where the button is that it wants you to click. And it works sort of 80% of the time. It's not completely perfect. Prior to this, the best model for this was actually Google Gemini. Google Gemini was trained to be able to return bounding boxes on images, which is a similar kind of capability. But anyway, they've got this mode where Claude can now, it's been fine-tuned on screenshots of computers. So it's very good at understanding UIs and figuring out, okay, I should go and click on this button. And then they give you this Docker container you can run, which fires up a little Ubuntu virtual machine on your computer, and it hooks up the Claude thing. It takes an Anthropic API key, gives you a chat interface down the side where you can say things like, go and search Google for something, and you can watch it, fire up Firefox, and go to www.google.com and run a search and click the button and start reading the result. And I don't like the term agent very much. I think it's very vague and nobody really knows what it means. But this thing is an agent, right? This is the most convincing version we've seen of this. You can set... somebody this morning was getting it to play 3SID. They had it like playing the open source Civilization clone.
Oh, really?
And it's quite... Yeah, it's. I've had it playing Sudoku. It sucks at Sudoku. It's just really, really, really bad at it. But you can at least watch you figuring out which buttons to press and how to fill in the grid and so forth. So it's fascinating. The fact that the fact that they released this as just open source, like a Docker file that you run yourself, is, like I say, it's a bit of a cheat for them because they don't have to do sandboxing. They don't have to solve any of the difficult security problems with this. And they also kind of said, watch out for prompt injection, be really careful with this thing, and then just release it for the world. So it's very free to shoot yourself in the foot with this
on your own machine. Yes, absolutely. So the release from them, just super quick, the release from them is actually, the open source stuff is for like developers. People will not run this themselves. But the open source release from them is the model knows how to do this, right? This is what we're talking about?
Exactly. There's a feature flag, there's a magic HTTP header you send to their API where you tell it to enable their computer use preview mode. And then effectively, as far as I can tell, you're being opted into a fine-tuned, I think it's fine-tuning, or it's some alternative mode of Sonnet, which just enables these, and then everything else is tool use. Like they ship 3 new sort of pre-configured tools. One of them is here's a screenshot of a computer, tell me where I should click and where I should enter text. One of them is a code editing tool, which is actually basically just a fancy search and replace. So the model can say, find the code that starts with these characters and replace it with these to try and make it a bit more efficient at updating bits of code that it's writing. And then the third tool is essentially a bash terminal. So it can run commands, and those aren't that exciting. Like any decent model has been able to give you terminal commands to run and then accept the results in the past. The thing that's new is the coordinate system. That's like the big step forward. That and the fact the model should have much better taste in how it decides to use a computer because they've clearly trained it on a whole bunch of computer use examples.
I also heard that they trained it probably on Firefox a lot, and I saw this tweet from Nearsian who tried to get it to order pizza. I don't know if you folks saw this. I'll try to find it. It's hilarious, and he has some specific guidelines into how to kind of use this. Apparently, this model refuses to do like real-world tasks, like do this thing, so you have to like work around them. But also, he says it can run other browsers, but it definitely prefers Firefox. Simon, thank you so much. I want to chat with Killian as well. Killian is here, so it's not going to be like a 3-way conversation because we're in mid-space, but we'll come back to this digital one as well. Killian, welcome to the show. You want to give a brief introduction to folks who don't know who you are?
Hey, Alex, for sure. Can you hear me okay, too?
Yes, I can hear fine. I think folks can hear fine. Give us a thumbs up. Yeah, we're getting thumbs up. Yeah.
Sure. So my name is Killian, and I'm the creator of Open Interpreter, which was about a year ago. I think I came on to ThursdAI, and that was one of the first kind of open attempts to try to get language models to control your computer. Yeah.
Which is now what we're talking about from a big lab, the release.
Exactly, yeah.
So how do you feel about this?
I feel great about it.
Yeah.
So I mean, there was first like, maybe in January or so, we put out something too, which was a bit of an attempt at this that was just semantically searching the screen for icons. Yeah. And then heard rumors then about other labs doing that and doing it in a way that would just completely eat up all the Rube Goldberg machines that people had built for trying to OCR over the screen or get grids on the screen or something like that. Ultimately, this is like a hard truth thing where there's ways of stitching models together to do it.
Yeah.
And Anthropic just came out and did an end-to-end, just screenshots in, coordinates out, and it's exactly what everybody here has been dreaming about. So,
Oh wow, incredible! So
Yeah.
big day for Open Interpreter
Totally,
because now
yeah.
you have a runner. So what you were using before, like OpenAI models as well?
yeah, so before there was a few things. I mean, us and trying to get stuff to run locally too, we'd been using Moondream to emit bounded
Yeah.
boxes and
Shout out
and-
Vic if he's in the audience.
Yeah, shout out Vic, and also to I think Molmo too is like has great coordinate stuff too. For everybody that's trying to do this, it's not too far off from what
From AI.
yeah,
Allen
too, here in
Institute,
Seattle, yeah. But yes, that's what
So
we
now,
were doing before.
have you used the new code interpreter for stuff? I saw that
a
you
lot.
already sent a tweet about something. So can you tell
Yeah,
us?
totally.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's your
and-
experience.
And okay, well, so first of all, literally just to apply some like gravity to what this is. This stuff of computer use, it's the same argument for having humanoid robots. Like the ability to have some kind of API that can control computers in the same way that humans control computers. It's that same argument for humanoid robots, that the world is human shaped and that the things that you can change in the world were built for humans to be able to do them. So the same thing is true digitally, that computers are human shaped. And if you have something like what Anthropic has put out, it means that everything that was accessible, be it software actions or data that's only APIs could handle, now everything that's been built and accessible over GUIs is available now. So anybody who's thinking about anything of AI getting out into the world should be thinking about computer use models, and this is the best one in the world, is the one that Anthropic has put out.
Oh.
It's the humanoid robot of computers.
I love the soundbite. Let me stay on this for a second. This is the humanoid robot of computer use, basically. What makes it so special, do you think, from your experience? We don't know the secret recipes, obviously. I do know that folks from OpenAI, Noam Brown, who worked on O1, talked about trying to do this in OpenAI and then kind of like stop whatever. So they've been trying to do this for a while.
Long time.
Which is like very impressive. I heard also, I don't know how true this is, that Dario Amodei, who's now like running on Topic, was in OpenAI and also was working on something like this. So I don't know if those are like rumors, but I know that like there has been work in this area from big labs for a while.
Yep.
And like from independent and open source as well from your side. So what do you think makes this one actually perform well?
Well, I think that it has something to do with the baked-in tools that are there. I don't think I've ever seen this. I've never seen from model providers a baked-in tool. If you look in the computer use documentation, they have in there that computer tool and the bash tool that Simon was talking about and the edit tool.
Yeah.
Those are all, you can't change the parameters. It's fine-tuned into the model, those exact tools. So this is not a model, and we even tried it too on other tools. It's less performant on general tool use.
Oh,
It is very performant on these specific 3 tools. So I've never seen this before. Usually you provide a tool to a language model and it's able to call that function and run it.
So we have, just to recap for folks who maybe didn't fully connect, the tool is one, understand what's in an image, right? So like OCR tool?
It's actually, so the computer tool, it has a lot of different options to it. So it has one is to take a screenshot, to enter key strokes, and also to move the mouse to different coordinates and to click.
Can you drag?
It can drag.
Oh, you can drag?
Yeah,
What?
it can drag. It's awesome.
That's
Okay, so
incredible.
check this out. So I tried this. First thing I had to try this.
Yeah.
Open up Photoshop, open up Photo Booth, and then I started just making faces. I was like, can you just draw me? Like, 'cause it can
Wow.
see me there. All this kind of stuff is so yes, it can totally, it can,
Wait,
it can drag.
how can it see you? Just like to confirm for folks in the audience.
Takes a screenshot,
Yeah.
and then it's just seeing if Photo Booth is open on the
your Photo Booth,
machine. Literally just Photo Booth is open.
Yeah.
Then it can look at you.
So for folks who maybe use Windows, this is like just like seeing yourself from your webcam thing.
Yeah, exactly. Just
Okay,
turning on
cool,
your
yeah, okay.
webcam, and then it can see you. What's cool too is that because it's looking at you, I tried just like pointing at different files on my desktop and being like, "Can you open that one? Can you open that one?" And it knew which one I was
Wait, so
pointing at. It knew
your
to click it.
window, you're in the webcam window
Yeah.
screen, and you're pointing with your finger towards up or down, whatever,
Exactly,
and
exactly,
it
yeah.
knows where you're pointing to.
Yeah, because as far as
What?
I mean, this is just Anthropic. You know, this is what Claude could do before. It could
Just
tell which way it was
vision-wise.
pointing, but it never was able to point at specific coordinates. Like you could usually you could ask it, which way is this person pointing? What file are they pointing at? But you could never have it emit specific coordinates. So
I'm-
I don't know if this
I'm
came
blown away,
from human use, tremendous amount of human use, speculation of maybe lots of different computers running on virtual machines trying to achieve something kind of like O1 with the reasoning, where the ones that were able to successfully get to the task were used as successful traces.
Yeah.
Not sure, could not get a straight answer out of them, nor could I get a straight answer to about whether or not this scaffolding that's been built into the model, and again, I don't know of this ever happening before, where the scaffolding of how this thing operates in the world is actually built into the model. The tools are baked in. But could not also tell if that SWE score that they were talking about came from the edit tool and the bash tool that is in there. It would make sense that it would. It would make sense that if you just turn off computer, then they may have also released here a model that is incredibly performant on SWE using those tools.
Yeah. So you've used it. What kind of new capabilities is open for Open Interpreter?
Oh, well, for us, a lot. I mean, so what we've been trying to do is get this stuff out into the open source world and have it so that folks can be playing with this technology. If you pip install Open Interpreter and run interpreter -OS, that's hooked up right now to Claude computer use.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So it just is immediately, you can start talking to it.
Just to make the differentiation for folks in the audience, the open demo that they released with Docker that Simon talked about, which is in the Anthropic, I think, quick starts the GitHub.
Yep.
That runs a Docker container on your computer with like a Linux environment, with a desktop, with Firefox. That's not what Open Interpreter does, right?
Yeah, well, okay, so it's based very much exactly on their demo. It was just to get something out so folks could play with it. Please exercise caution with it too, just as the same as what they were saying. This thing is capable now of accessing anything on your system. It's really as bad as it could be.
So Open Interpreter does run on my machine.
Yes,
it clicks
this
the
is a
stuff
way
that
of,
I look at.
Exactly. It's a way of testing that out to see that. And if you move your mouse to any corner of your screen, it shuts it off.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind.
I want to switch back to Simon just super quick. Simon, I have a question for you, because last week, or when was this, we talked about you using Vision from Gemini, recording yourself. And the thing that unlocked for me there was the authentication problem that this bypasses. We're having kind of the same thing here, aren't we? Could you talk about this a little bit? Because like authentication is one of the worst things with like APIs authentication. This can run, let's say, on my machine. I can be already logged into the services. It can do some stuff. Could you talk about this?
Right. So yeah, my excitement with Gemini, this was screen scraping by recording just videos of my screen and feeding them to Gemini, which means that you don't have to get the bot to log into your Gmail account and do two-factor auth and all of that kind of stuff. It just works. So the interesting thing about the new Claude Compute Use feature is they have absolutely hobbled it for safety reasons. Like, it has this huge list of things that it will not do. It will not create an account on a website because they don't want people using it to automatically create armies of bots. It won't buy things. It won't check. It won't do a checkout for similar reasons, I guess, so that nobody accidentally prompt inject you into spending thousands of dollars on Amazon or whatever.
Or
I
it decides
imagine
on
these
its own,
things to be
right?
jailbroken.
The funny example that they shared is that they talked about like working really hard, and it went and bought them pizza. I think this was like one of the examples from Alex Albert. Yeah, so there's like some amount of decisiveness. I think another example is like it went and browsed pictures of something.
It browsed pictures of Yosemite National Park. I mean, they didn't give enough detail about what actually happened there, but it's kind of cute, you know. Maybe it's like that saying. Sometimes people will try and train the chatbot on all of their Slack messages, and they'll ask it to do something. It'll say, "I'll do it after the weekend."
Yeah.
You know, training laziness into the models. But yeah, so they call out prompt injection as a threat specifically in the documentation and in the README in this Docker container, and they say, you know, even though we've put all of these measures in to protect you, don't run this against like authenticated private data where you can also be exposed to malicious instructions. This is why they did it as a Docker container as well.
Yeah.
The Docker container is actually quite easy to run if you've got Docker for Desktop installed. If you haven't, it's just
two lines of
jargon
code.
that you'll never...
One line of code is like the API Anthropic, and then the other one is just like it runs their Docker and it like fully works. I will say this one thing. I said this in the beginning, Simon, and this was mine head blow moment. The Docker container like started the thing and it opened the environment. So I saw the Claude on the left side, and then they have a VNC. They have like a remote window experience, so you can watch the Docker container desktop environment. I don't believe you can click yourself into it, right? I don't know.
No,
like,
you can.
You can, really?
You can click into. Yeah, there's a little thing in the very top right. There's a little toggle button that says "Take Over,"
Oh,
and
wow.
you click that, and now because it's using one of the JavaScript VNC clients in a big canvas element. It's really good. It's it's a decent little open source VNC package they're using.
Did not know that you can click into this, which much more prefer because I can log into stuff. But what for me happened is that VNC did not start. And I tried 3 times and reinstalled it, did not start. And I was sitting there, I was like, I went to, like, I asked Alex Albert, the DevRel guy, like, on Twitter, like, you know, I do my own thing. And then I was like, hey, let me just ask it to fix it. I just went there, I was like, hey, VNC doesn't work, can you fix this? And it went to like 20 steps. I see all those steps are in the video on my profile, and it just fixed it. It's like, oh yeah, this package is not installed, whatever, within the Docker. So it literally ran and installed that package, restarted whatever inside while it's still running, and VNC started working. And I'm looking at this and I'm like, what the actual fuck just happened? This thing just fixed itself, and it's giddy about it too. Like, this model has a little bit of a personality. It's like, ah, ta-da, it's fixed.
Wow, because also, like, it can install stuff. It's got apt-get. So I asked it if it had FFmpeg. I just said, do you have FFmpeg? And he goes, no, I don't have mpeg. I'll install it. And then it installed FFmpeg. I didn't even ask it to. It just went ahead and did it.
Wow. Wolfram, you have your hand raised. Go ahead, and then Gillian.
Yeah. Just wanted to add that as a hilarious thing I saw as well. So the first task I gave it was to search on the web, and it couldn't because when it opened Google, we had such a privacy policy, you have to click OK, but that screen alone was so big that the OK button wasn't on the screen. And so it started to troubleshoot it, go to the console and use bash and killed the browser, restarted it, the button came again, and it was really getting, she was really getting annoyed and frustrated about that thing and really tried to debug it. It was really hilarious.
I love that, because all it needed to do was scroll down an inch, right? And instead
I couldn't even do it myself. Yeah,
it was funny.
It didn't work, but that was funny. Yeah.
I think for me, after the head blown moment happened to me, the next thing that I asked for is like, hey, go to ThursdAI and like tell me what was the last episode about. And it got stuck on the splash screen of Substack because of that small resolution screen as well. And Killian, this is a little bit what you were talking about. Like, the web is human shaped, and this is like a robot trying to like fit itself into the humanoid robot problem in human shape. It wasn't able to like X out of the splash screen to start and look at what's actually happened the last episode. It was like incredibly frustrating to see, because just now, a second ago, you blown my mind with this new capability of like fixing yourself. And now like this seemingly stupid thing that I think most humans who browse the internet are like natively doing, it's unable to do that.
This whole thing is definitely, there's a reason it's a preview, right? It's crap.
Yeah.
It's got so many, it's incredibly impressive and exciting. The potential is very obvious, but also this is very much like a V1 like beta. It's not actually really useful yet, but they don't need to improve it very much for it to suddenly be super useful.
Yeah. So would love to hear, Killian, from your experiences, have been running Open Interpreter, computers running, just the code on, especially my machines. What are some of the like edge cases like this that are still problematic, even with this model? And what is like the next frontier here to solve for computers just like automating everything for me on my machine?
Well, they mentioned this too in their blog post about this, but you got to know that this is just a model that's seeing a flipbook version of a computer. It is not really getting a sense of any of the spatial things going on, of the like temporal things going on. It's just getting screenshots and then trying to operate the computer bit by bit in that way. So lots of things like scrolling seem to be confusing for it. Certainly scrollers and kind of playback heads on videos and things. And it's interesting too, because we know that this kind of thing has been being worked on for some time. And it would make sense from even how they were describing it in the blog post that the next thing to do here, like I don't know if you remember in like the let's verify step by step, OpenAI pretty much just said exactly what they were going to do in 01 at the end of it. But they just were like, of course, the obvious next step would be this. That's the same true for the Anthropic release, in that they say, this is just a flipbook version. Of course, the next thing to do here,
stream
video,
everything, stream video,
just be streaming video, and that's you'd imagine too the kind of temporal spatial blocks, space-time units that OpenAI is talking about too. Like, of course, you would want something that's just constantly streaming video in, so it's able to navigate it that way. So
Simon,
it's
I
interesting.
think-
thing-
Simon, you had a comment.
Yep.
as well.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
Yeah,
Simon.
but the other thing that's worth calling out, the cost, the price of this thing, it's very expensive because
Oh, okay.
the way it works is it sends these screenshots back, and each screenshot is and I spent $4.50 playing around with it, and I'm thinking, how on earth did I spend that much money? And I realized
wow.
the problem is that it takes a screenshot, it takes all of these screenshots. You can see them in the chat window. But of course, it's using a chat API where each time it sends a message, it sends the entire previous context.
Yep.
So that first message has one screenshot in, it's super cheap. But when you're sort of 30 screenshots in, every single thing you send to it sends back those 30 screenshots yet again. I don't think they're using prompt caching, which they should be.
There should be.
But yeah, so you can really rack up the charges on this if you're not careful with it.
They're using a bit of prompt caching. It's also the case too that you can have this thing using just the last screenshot and the screenshot before it, and it dramatically reduces the cost. So for anybody who's playing with
that
this
makes
stuff,
sense.
it's really not much less performant to have it just use the last screenshot and the screenshot before it and cut
but
out
not
the
in
rest.
their demos, like writing something custom for that, for example.
Yes, yeah, and they have a minimum threshold of the screenshots it's going to retain, so you can go into their demo and just cut it down.
I will also say you can use Open Interpreter now running this. Our mutual friend Kyle Corbett also worked with this model itself to build something. It's called Agent.exe. I don't know if you had a chance to see this.
Kyle's-
Yeah, so this is like super cool. So shout out to Kyle Corbett from OpenPipe. He built something that is like an Electron app that runs this on your computer without a Docker. And
I have to admit,
Yes,
I'm
go
too
ahead.
much of a coward to have tried that yet.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I'm just not brave enough. Has anyone actually given it a go? Because it looks brilliant. I'm just like, wow, that sounds terrifying.
It takes a certain will, especially with like a working computer that you rely on your job to do. But definitely, so Agent.exe is basically the same thing, but instead it runs the model directly on your computer and runs in.
Oh, you know what?
Yeah.
On macOS, you can create a new user, create a separate user account, use that, it'll be fine, right? You
Yeah.
use the macOS user account thing to look
But
at applicable use stuff.
I'm sure
That's
that,
probably
like,
the way to play with that.
Simon, I'm sure that like Gillian, you know of some people who don't care and run even OpenTop like completely on their yeah.
Well, but at the same time, the idea of that different user account is a great idea because I remember in the early days of Open Interpreter, this guy Morrissey just had it running on a Mac Mini at home with its own Apple ID, and then he could text it while he was out and about, and it was plugged in. So it was just, to be clear, Open Interpreter was just executing code.
Yeah.
You lose a bunch of things though from that, and whoever kind of cracks the safety and alignment problem of this thing there's a lot of interesting stuff to do there. When I first put out Open Interpreter and I sent it to Joe here, he said he asked it to send me an email and it worked, and I was like, no, I don't think that's true. It's just running like shell code. There's no way that it did that, but it used AppleScript. And AppleScript is logged into your stuff. So there's massive, gains to be had if you can figure out how to do it safely.
Yeah.
But it's not for the faint of heart. And recommend definitely everybody use the Docker container.
The safety feature they've added that I saw, Simon, I don't know if you noticed, there's a click sound, which is like very annoying.
Oh, I hate it.
I hate
yeah.
the click sound, but it feels like a baked in haphazard safety feature. So you know it clicks, and it's like, oh, did it click something? Let me go look. But the sound is so annoying. There's at some point it's like, I was recording myself, and I was like, I don't want people to think that I added this sound with post editing. It's that bad. All right, folks. I think so. Super exciting. You can run this on your computer. Although we all advise you to be very careful with this. You can use this via Open Interpreter. So very exciting, folks. So definitely give it a try. And a shout out to Gillian for coming up and chatting about this use case. Simon, any last thoughts on this specific topic? Because we have a bunch of other stuff to discuss, but I really wanted to cover this because I think, to me, from this week, this is one of the more incredible breakthroughs that we saw.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's worth playing with. Like, if you've never installed Docker before, the Docker desktop app on Mac and Windows, it's fine. You install it with an executable, and then you run that command. I think it's really worth trying out.
Absolutely. Yeah, folks, give it a try. If you did give it a try, give us a comment here on Space or just wherever you hear this. We'd love to hear specific thoughts as well. And Killian, parting thoughts?
A real quick thing too on this, just for folks that are thinking farther ahead and to compare this to with other releases that happened this week, it's still worth saying that while this does let you use classical software using AI, and there's a lot of gains to be had, it might still be the case that the computers of the future are just AI end to end. Like if you look at the Mid-Journey release with the editor, that's doing stuff that still takes you 20 hours to do in Photoshop.
Yep.
So, I mean, it might be the case that this kind of stuff is the future, but it could just be that it's end-to-end AI.
Yeah, so this is like intermediary while the web is still human shaped.
Yeah.
So we're also moving to the web that's like less shaped. Example on this topic, I saw something that you mentioned and they tried to fix. Was that from OpenAI where you tried to use Gina to scrape the docs? And they're like, no computers are allowed. You can't scrape this. And then they asked you asked them to fix it. Could you like recount this? This was like a very hilarious moment.
That was really funny. Yeah. So I got fed up of trying to control A on my mobile phone. Like I wanted to select an entire web page and dump it into a model. And that's really hard on an iPhone. So I built a tiny little app using initially with Claude Artifacts where you can paste in a URL to anything. And it uses the Gina Reader API to turn that into Markdown and gives you a copy to clipboard button. And that's great, except I tried it on OpenAI documentation and I got a Cloudflare bot warning saying you're not allowed to scrape this web page, which is incredibly funny.
From
And
OpenAI specifically,
right.
Like the epitome of irony. Like, shut up.
And yeah, so I tweeted about it to embarrass them, and I did get a reply back from, I think it was Roman, saying, yeah, that's not deliberate, we'll try and fix that. Because come on, people, this is let us run your tech against your documentation, please.
The basic thing. So yeah, I shouted out UiThub as well, and Gina Reader is one of the cooler services. Gina, like shout out to Gina. We had both from Gina come up about their meetings. This service specifically just lets you paste any URL and get like a nice markdown format, so you'd be able to paste everything into an LLM. It's like super cool.
It's the best API as well. All you do is you take any URL on the web and you type gina.ai/ in front of it. So you go to https gina.ai/ and then a URL. And on their server, they're firing up its Puppeteer, and they run a headless Chrome browser and all of that. But it spits out Markdown, which you can copy and paste straight into something. And I built the thinnest little UI layer on top of it because I wanted a copy to clipboard button so I could tap it on my mobile phone.
Nice.
But yeah, it's a really great API.
Super great API. Shout out to them, and hopefully the web will also become will have place for us humans in that next web of AIs as well. All right, folks, we're moving on because there's just like so much to talk about. Not to mention the multimodal stuff and video stuff that we have. I see AJ from Genmo in the audience. AJ, I sent you a mic request. Hit that mic to come up, and soon we're going to chat about the video models. I will just super briefly cover what else we had left in the big companies' APIs. X has given us XAI, sorry, not X. X is the platform we're on. XAI is the very up and coming and super quickly catching up, if not beating other labs very soon, AI like frontier lab. Especially with the Memphis supercluster we've talked about and the speed with which, like even like Jensen is like all insanely impressed by how fast they're ramping up the superclusters. XAI, folks, I'm predicting like by December, this is what like Musk used to say, maybe January because Musk doesn't usually hit timelines, but he does hit goals. I'm predicting that XAI is going to be a frontier lab and probably beating other labs very, very soon. And for us, semi-developers, like some of us very much developers, some of us like, are interested. XAI has released an API finally. So far, you've been only be able to use X Grok via X and XAI website as well. But now they have an API platform. It looks like they're very seriously going after enterprise. The usage stats and everything, it all looks very like super professional. They all built it in like 3 months as well. So shout out to them. On the actual offering that they have is Grok Beta, and I don't think they have Mini yet. It's $5 per input, 1 million tokens, $15 for 1 million output tokens. So you can sign up right now. There's no free tier, so you have to put up a credit card. It looks like it's really, really gearing towards API and enterprise use. Very interesting. And I think the more interesting thing is that right now Grok 2 is like, it's okay, but meh. Like, why would you use this? The whole thing about them, specifically, if you're listening to Elon Musk about Grok, is that like it's the maximum truth searching model, whatever. So that means that you may have way less restrictions for stuff you want to do, Wolfram, for example, than other models in other labs. Definitely, we know the approach is different, and so this is maybe the one use. The other use that I'm very excited about that they don't have yet is access to real-time data from X. I think one of the biggest usages for Grok itself is asking like what's going on right now, or go find me some tweets or whatever. That is not on the API. So we're only getting access to the model. And the third thing I'll say is that they have secretly a vision model as well. That apparently Grok 2 is multimodal. Who knew? I did not know, because it looks like when you search for tweets in there, it doesn't really know what the meme image was. So, but I know a year ago we chatted with XAI folks at New IPS, and they did say vision is coming. So vision is actually there. They have a vision model. They even opened up the API tokens for the vision model for folks at the hackathon they had over the last weekend, I believe. And so, but we're not getting this vision feature yet, but it's there, it's coming. So like if you want to build something with the vision, with Grok, and have it be less censored, I think this model, like the expectation is it's going to be less nanny whole monitor type model, and more of a model that lets you do what you want, given how Grok specifically is performing and the images it generates. So I think that if this is your use case, but you want it on an enterprise level, I think this could be outside of open source and like fine-tuning your own models. This could be like the main lab that does this thing for you. And I think many people would like that. And obviously this comes like, sometimes you don't want to host your own models, but to do those things. Folks, any comments on Grok super quick? Have you tried it, the API stuff specifically, and want to leave comments, or are we moving on? Looks like we are moving on. Okay. Last thing that I cover in the big companies APIs before we kind of like, before we move on, is Apple. Apple always says they don't want to be the first, they want to be the best. And I don't know about that second part, honestly. But I will tell you that I've been running iOS 18.1 beta pretty much since it released on my main phone. Not only because, I'm here to serve you guys and like tell you what's new in the world of AI and also experience it, but also like I'm the hugest Apple geek. I have like everything is in the ecosystem. The one of the most exciting things, Wolfram, we've talked about this, is that, and Nistan was here, we talked about this as well when we covered Apple Intelligence, is not always the intelligence level that rises that is exciting for most folks. Is, are you able to use this for your own stuff? Because Simon and I, we just covered like, okay, the computer use stuff, you need to install Docker, you need to run this. Even if it's easy, like most people will not do this. My mom will not do this. My grandma, rest in peace, grandma, she would not have done this if she'd been alive right now. Other grandmas who are alive will not do this. Basically, this is my point. And Apple is putting this technology in the hands of people right now, and all they need to do is accept an already incoming automatic install, and they will have a 3 billion parameter Apple Foundation model, I believe they call them, FMs, on device, running things and doing actual practical things with their data. So what kind of stuff that I already experienced that folks will get? Summarization is really cool. Like it's really, really useful. You don't need a big model for this. You need like a very simple model, and it works very well. Recently, I found out that summarization model is multimodal as well. Somebody sent me a text, Sam, my friend, sent me a text with an image, and I got the summarization model saying what was in this image in the little summary thing. That was super, super cool. So very useful, especially if you have, like all of us, like many hosts here on stage, you have a group chat and it blows up and you don't want to follow all of it. This summarizes a group chat like perfectly. So these little things Apple is really good at, and putting them in your hands is Apple is really good at. So what did we get this week? iOS 18.2 beta is kind of the next wave of releases from Apple Intelligence, specifically around the visual stuff and ChatGPT integration. So you guys remember all of this kind of like brouhaha about, Apple's going to send everything from us into OpenAI and, blah, 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 blah. Many people like started freaking out because Apple's like whole brand is privacy. So, well, that wasn't actually the case. You have to approve everything that sends to ChatGPT, but now it actually is there. So you download 18.2. You don't even have to, you have to have a developer account, but it's not paid. I would not recommend this if you don't know what you're doing, or if battery life is very important for you, because it looks like it eats up battery life. You download 18.2, and then it pops up like a pop-up and says, hey, would you like to connect your ChatGPT account? Or, which is very interesting, and I found it yesterday, you don't have to say, I have an account. You can say, I want to use ChatGPT for free, and Apple clearly states that if you don't sign up to your account, OpenAI will not train on your data, will not know who you are, and you basically can use this for free, which is quite incredible to have found out. I thought that like they would at least require an account. No, they don't. Very interesting. So that integration is super cool. You can ask Siri now to do some stuff like hey, write a poem, and it will ask you, hey, I cannot do this. Would you want to go with ChatGPT? And ChatGPT is like this huge blue button that you press as a user, and you are like, okay, I'm allowing this thing to happen. So Apple, by the way, Killian, we talked about kind of the safety approach. I'm sure that folks at Apple have like whole departments of thinking like how to even tell users what's going on in a safe way, so they will know, not even break things on my iPhone, but just like information-wise, what's going to ChatGPT versus what's on device, etc. So they really like looked into this, and that's how it feels like from this interface. But also, so ChatGPT integration aside, they have now released what's called visual intelligence, which is they announced this with the new iPhones as a main feature and did not release this until now, which is very interesting. The new iPhones have a camera button on the right, but I think visual intelligence will come maybe for other iPhones. I actually don't know. Somebody please confirm in the comments whether or not this is only a new iPhones feature. Basically, what visual intelligence is, you press this button, but you hold it instead of opening the camera. You hold it, and that thing, opens up a new interface that looks like a camera. It has two buttons. It has one Google button and one chat thingy button, and that chat thingy button lets you send that image directly to ChatGPT vision mode, and you can reason with the vision with the image that you just took. And that's pretty cool, because that's kind of a multimodal AI that joins you in the real world. And if you guys ever done this, I'm pretty sure everybody who listens to ThursdAI at least once tried multimodal ChatGPT. If you're out about in the world, it's really cumbersome to pull up ChatGPT, to wait for the login, to wait for the application to boot, and then to like hit the button on the camera and then write what you want with it. It's like a whole process, and this process prevents you from doing this. So Apple has streamlined this to like 2 clicks, which I think is super cool. I will say that besides being an obnoxious Bluetooth takeover and ruining my microphone in the beginning, Meta Ray-Bans that I just got are incredible at this specific thing as well. They're multimodal. There's one click and you just like, hey Meta, what am I looking at? So multimodal AI is definitely here. We're experiencing this, but not many people will wear those glasses. But many people have iPhones, hopefully with this feature. And so the vision intelligence feature is pretty cool. It's not completely there yet. It crashed a couple of times, obviously iOS beta. And the last thing that they released is Genmoji. I've been waiting for this. They released this thing called Image Studio, which allows you to take and create some stuff. Genmoji is like, it sounds ridiculous to many people. I thought this was like one of the most like Apple-ish genius strokes that they've released, because they are looking at the next like iteration of humans, and those are Gen whatevers. I don't know what gens they are. Not even Jay-Z. Gen Z is already old for this. Creating your own emojis is incredible. I wanted this for many months, like years since whatever, and you have to apply for the emoji.org foundation, whatever. They now have a thing where on the fly you type something and the diffusion model just generates emojis that look like emojis, but basically on anything that you want. So these features are super cool. They landed just now in beta. Emoji Studio is not even opening to everyone. It's like a wait list. I don't think I've got access, but if I do, I will post in the newsletter. So this is everything. Folks, reactions from this? Anybody tried the beta on stage and wants to chime in? And if not, folks in the audience, please give us a comment if you tried it or something that I missed in there, and we'll update. But otherwise, I think this is all the news that we have for the big companies and APIs. And we're clocking in at an hour and a half in the show, so I'll do a quick reset, and I will just tell you that the next 2 segments of the show is this week's Buzz, where we talk about everything weights and biases, and after that, we have a very interesting chat with AJ Jain here on stage about Genmo and Mochi One, which I'm very, very excited about. So stay tuned. So let's do a quick reset, and then we will chat. Alrighty, folks, welcome back from this little music break. You're on ThursdAI, October 24th. We've been at this for an hour and a half, and what an incredible week we've had on terms of releases. We just talked about Anthropic stuff. We talked about other big companies and APIs. Just an insane week that happened in the world of AI, and it feels like it's going to take us a little bit more than the regular 2 hours to cover everything, because we still have the whole multimodal thing to talk about, and there's a lot there. Before this, though, the standard corner that I call this week's Buzz is specifically about everything weights and biases related. And this week, there's a few things that I want to cover super quick. The first one is because Weave, which is our LLM observability tool, is multimodal, it came in super clutch when OpenAI last week released their voice mode in chat completions. So we mentioned this briefly before. Chat completions API is the regular API that everybody uses. The advanced voice mode is the kind of the very native 4.0, the Omni in 4.0 is like for Omni model. This is the native voice experience that this model like talks. So you can ask it for the speed up and slow down. You can ask it for accents. You can ask it to like role play. If they didn't unlock this, you could ask it for sound effects. You can ask it to sync, but they did lock this, so it's unlocked. So that thing, they released over API during Dev Day. Me and Simon, we covered this before. During Dev Day, you'd be able to just connect via WebSockets and WebRTC, etc. Those protocols, if you hear about them and you're not experienced with them, they may like be super scary for you. WebRTC is like, oh, there's like so much going on, async, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Now they have released this last week, the same ability to hit that specific model via the chat completions API, which is a very standard API for many, many people. And you can just use it and you can say audio true and you'll get that model to speak. Now, it's still the most expensive model they have. It's I believe $100 per 1 million input tokens and $200 per 1 million of output tokens. It's really, if you heard Simon talk before about Anthropic's Claude thing getting expensive because of images, this thing carries the same kind of context issue. The more you talk to it, the more like tokens it sends. And it just like, like you can play with it for like, I don't know, 20 minutes and incur a $5 cost. So it's still the expensive model for OpenAI, but it's the new and incredible model. You can ask it to like do a bunch of stuff. Why am I bringing this up in this week's Buzz category for weights and biases? Is because now that you can do this in the regular chat completions API, you want to track everything that it does, and Weave is probably the only place you can do it, which is I'm very excited about. The folks at Weave came in super clutch with the multimodal support, so now you can upload not only images and not only text and images like you were able to, and probably other platform support as well. Now we're the first. We're definitely not going to be the only. Like I'm pretty sure that everybody will understand the importance of multimodal. I was just wanted to show you like who knows the heartbeat of everything. We now support audio as well. And the reason I'm celebrating this much is because not only because I work here and it's awesome, but also because it really came in super important for me during this weekend, where I and Daniel and Junaid, we together joined the hackathon, and we built a robotic arm that the pinchers of this robotic arm, by the way, shout out to Le Robot from Hugging Face. The pinchers from this robotic arm, we put in a hand puppet, and we animated this hand puppet, and we used audio from specifically Cartesia at that point, because OpenAI is very expensive, to just talk. We also cloned somebody's very famous chef's voice, and this like chef puppet talked at you with this British voice, etc. And the reason I'm bringing this up again in the this week's bugs category is because oftentimes the speaker did not work for us. The Bluetooth didn't connect. Like a bunch of stuff did not work, and we wanted to hear the prompt whether or not they worked. And so we were able to go to Weave, the multimodal kind of like Weave, and to see whatever this model generated in audio without even having the actual puppet like make the sound. This was really super useful. And I think the way to sell these like products is to not tell you, hey, we have a product in the future, is to tell you a use case that it actually came through with. And this was like really super useful. So shout out to the folks at Weave who I don't think collaborated with OpenAI. I don't know what's going on fully, but I don't believe that we knew that they were releasing the audio thing just in time. And somebody took the initiative, I think Griffin, so shout out for this, like, for me, an incredible addition to this platform. I think that many folks are missing how important multimodality actually is, and multimodality with audio is very, very important. So this is this week's Buzz. Weave is now multimodal. Please use this and let me know if it works for you or not. The second thing that I want to chat with about this week's Buzz is that we're hosting a hackathon. And I want to hear from Joe if you want to give us a few words, because we're only the hosting and the hosting sponsor for this hackathon. However, this is the AI Thinkers Hackathon, and Joe here with me. Joe, please give us a few minutes on the hackathon.
Sure. Hey, everybody.
Or
Thanks.
maybe like a few sentences. Not
A few
sentences,
sentences, sure, yeah. So Humans in the Loop Agents Hackathon happening at Weights and Biases. Google's coming in as a big sponsor, bringing lots of engineers, letting us use Gemini and probably helping us out quite a bit. But there's also just an incredible roster of people who will be on hand judging, helping. Lots of founders of cool agentic startups. Payman founder will be there flying in for the event.
Nice.
Rahul from Julius will be there as a judge.
If you guys don't know who Rahul from Julius is, but you may remember that there's a few media that got like joked around when Twitter was getting fired, like a lot of people. There's two people standing with boxes outside that like were like frustrated ex-engineers or Twitter engineers that Elon Musk fired. Rahul Ligma and Daniel Johnson, and this was like a whole thing. Rahul is that Rahul, and now he's the founder of Julius AI, and he's like a super chill dude.
It's awesome to be hanging out with Julius. He's killing it with this company. They're just doing great stuff, very cutting edge. Maria Zhang, I don't know if many people know her. She was a VP at Google. She was a VP at Meta. She was CTO of Tinder, and she's on the technical side. We'll be there hanging out as a judge. Just incredible people. That's one reason to go. The other is just we build real stuff at our hackathons. It's no slide decks. It's 100% active builders. Running code is a requirement even to be judged, and everyone who gets in is going to be a very capable engineer. So we're actually going to push some boundaries hopefully at the event. We did it in Seattle, so this is in San Francisco. The bar should be higher. So come and join us.
I'm super excited. I'm flying down for this. And I will say also that Wisdom Bias beyond sponsoring will have a raffle for a pair of Meta Ray-Bans that hopefully will not take over your stream with their Bluetooth, but the pair of Meta Ray-Bans that you'll get for the best Weave usage, or not the best, raffle from Weave users as well. So I'm going to be there as a judge, and I'm super, super happy to like sponsor this in our awesome new office in San Francisco. Please show up. There's still limited spot left.
Yeah, there's a few spots left. Definitely sign up. Vibe Hub from Replit, who built AI agent for Replit, will be there hanging out. So I think it'll be just an incredible time, if nothing else, just to make new friends. But
this is only the people that Joe knows about. There's definitely going to be friends of mine in San Francisco Joe doesn't know about. That also will show up. So definitely there's going to be like a cool hang. And I think that even if you don't sign up for the hackathon, you can come and see the demos. Like we'll be okay. Like the standing room that we have is way more than sitting room. So we'll invite you to see the demos if you're in Sunday, November 3rd in San Francisco. Just
finalist presentations will be around 3 p.m.
3 p.m. Okay, so probably around 4 p.m. as hackathons work. All right, Joe, thank you.
Thank you.
And now it's time for us to move on and also introduce our guest for the next segment here to the vision and video category of this week, which also was insane. So, AJ, welcome. I would like for you to first maybe unmute and introduce yourself to the folks. Then I'll cover everything else that happened, and we'll talk about Genmo. Is that cool?
Awesome. Yeah, sounds fantastic. It's really a pleasure to be here, Alec. Thank you for inviting me. We're Genmo. I'm the CTO and co-founder. We're a video generation research lab and startup. And this week we released Mochi 1, the best open video generative model.
That's super cool. AJ, you're coming a little bit low on the volume if you're able to like maybe get closer to the mic. And so we're definitely super excited about Mochi 1. And I think the shout out that we had together, you guys also use Wisdom Biases, which is incredible. But before this, I would just like run out to every other news thing because this category was absolutely insane this week, on fire. You guys chose, I don't know if the best or the worst week to release, probably the best because you came on top in this like release cycle, I think. But still, it was like there's so much news. So let's run through them super quick. Rhymes AI, our friends from Rhymes AI released Allegro as well, and Nuo here is to speak from about this model from Rhymes as well. Meta released a bunch of releases in the video and vision category, including SAM 2.1, segment anything model. They also have the movie gen model that they keep teasing about, and they never like told us about when they're going to release this, but that also looks super cool. Runway, we know Runway like released multiple like models for video generation. They released a new model called Act 1, which is a new tech completely. It's kind of like a video generation, but it's been driven by single driving video, translating emotions. That's like super cool. The examples of this you have to see. This is not a podcast-y thing. If we were a visual podcast, we would show you like videos right now, but we're not. So you have to go and see the Runway like Act 1 things. There's also a new video model from Hyper AI. But basically all of those, and you guys are releasing an open source one, AJ. So I would love for you to tell us like what's going on with this. First of all, shout out and props to you for releasing this with the Apache 2 license. I think this is one of the more incredible things. Tell us about Mochi 1.
Mochi 1 is a 10 billion parameter diffusion transformer. We built a new architecture called the asymmetric DIP, and wanted to release it to the whole community. Like start hacking on it, building these kinds of applications in the open, because it's early days in video, in my opinion. Like it seems like it's moving super fast. We're very far from really physically coherent, long form video synthesis that's cheap enough and economical enough for deployment to the whole world. Given that, at Genmo, we think it's best to push this tech in the open, so we open sourced it. It's available on our Hugging Face, on our GitHub, Genmo AI, and on our website with the best quality at genmo.ai.
We'll give also a quick shout out to our friends at Foul here that also like work with you guys. I know, and like now you can also use this to Foul. And so what's good about this model, AJ? So I know, so I used it a little bit, and then I had some trouble getting something coherent, and then somebody told me you need to use longer prompts. And so I used like a prompt extension. I just went to GPT-4, I gave my prompt, and I said, hey, give this prompt a lot more detail, and it gave it, and like it was incredibly improvement on the video quality as well. What are some of the, first of all, the incredible things you saw from this model, but also maybe give us like some tips and tricks of how to use this specific one?
We really focused on two things with Mochi 1 preview. The first is prompt adherence. We use a T5 XXL text encoder. It can support really long prompts. You can put in a lot of detail. It really tries to cram in all that detail. So if you just try multiple scenes in your prompt, it only gives you a 5.5 second video, but it will try to squeeze them all into the clip. The second thing we really focus on is motion. And so we're Genmo, we focus on generative motion. And I think a lot of the progress we've seen in video generation has been focused on aesthetics, but not necessarily pushing the motion super far. So in Mochi, you can kind of go really over the top, get a lot of motion, get very coherent, interesting motion. In particular, you could use things like hand-object dynamics. I posted a video of people kneading dough on Twitter earlier. Those are the two focus areas. The model in open source right now generates at 480p, so it's not focused on resolution, but that will change. And on our website, we give you actually much higher resolution. In terms of tips, long prompts, like you mentioned, I think use plain language. We're not really focused on these comma-separated type of prompts, more like just talk how you would describe a scene. For example, a close-up shot of, a primary subject doing some action.
So AJ, I want to ask about, so first of all, thank you for the tips. And then I'm sure that like, I saw you being very responsive so folks can, show you examples and ask, and you guys would love feedback as well. I want to ask about the size. So for LLMs, 10 billion parameters is like nothing. Like those are the small models, almost, Zenova like almost can run them in browser, 10 billion, not yet, but soon. For diffusion models, those are huge. Like I know like Stable Diffusion like releases the big ones, but it started around like 4 billion parameters as well. Do you find that like larger models are performing way better? So the upcoming HD model, for example, will that necessarily translate into higher quality things? Could you talk about kind of the size to performance to like training ratio?
Yeah, absolutely. Large models, I think, are important for high quality physical understanding. How do people interact?
So like world understanding? Yeah.
Yeah, world understanding, world simulation, world modeling. And that has been a little bit lacking with the smaller models. We wanted to see how far we could push it. 10 billion parameters is a chunky model, right? When we released it, we released a really high quality distributed inference pipeline based on context parallelism in our GitHub that expected around 4 GPUs to distribute inference. And unlike LLMs, you actually have to process every token, every inference step. So in a language model, you only need to process the next token. You can cache the prefix, like a prompt caching. Diffusion model, you have to reprocess all the tokens every time because they're denoising all of them. So you have a long sequence length, reprocessing everything for hundreds of steps, and a 10 billion parameter model. It's expensive. But the community has been working on it, and I've already seen people pack Mochi 10B onto a 4090 GPU.
Yeah, I saw that. Yes.
20 gigabytes VRAM. It's crazy. It's within 24 hours.
Yes. The chat at the Comfy UI level, if you give them something that cannot run on Comfy, they will make it run on Comfy, whatever. So that's a quantized model, right? That runs on like a single 4090?
Yeah. I think those were SP8 weights, which I'm not yet sure. I haven't done a detailed analysis on the quality loss, but at least it's possible and you get coherent video.
Yeah. Oh, that's incredible. AJ, what bit you to start a video generation company? Like, what's going on?
I've been working on diffusion for a long time. I mean, I've been in the generative model space for 7 years now. We did my PhD at Berkeley, where we did a lot of the early research in diffusion models. At the time, diffusion models could generate grayscale images, little tiny images. We pushed it to the state of the art in the PhD. At that point, I realized that they would just keep scaling, right? Like one of the first diffusion models I trained, we trained it on pictures of people's bedrooms, posted online. just as a benchmark. And the model started generating artwork on the walls. And you can see shadows and reflections from labs. And now this is just assumed that a generative model should do all this. But at the time, it blew me away. And I knew we needed to keep pushing this. Went to Google, where I had met a bunch of great collaborators. And after that, we just wanted to get the technology out into the world, to products where people could use it. And now through Mochi into open source where people can build on it. And I think a startup like Genmo is the best place to do that, to make this technology broadly available.
So, question about this, super quick. This is a technical show, but I want to ask a question. You guys have also announced a seed round, I believe, of Series A funding of almost 30 million, 28 million. Congratulations on this, by the way. When you look at labs like Meta already announcing like Movie Gen and knowing that they have an open source strategy for their other stuff, how you think about competing with like a giant like this with like extreme resources? Is it only like the crack team or approach, or like what do you think about there?
There's a ton of unsolved problems in diffusion models, and I think multiple labs are making progress here. So by putting it out in the open, we can work with the community to figure out how to solve some of these fundamental problems. We're a startup, right? So we don't have as many GPUs as Meta at any given time. We have a lot. We got that funding round. We've gotten really creative on being efficient with our resources. But we need the community to help us here, to work together to figure out how do we scale these models better? How do we make them more efficient? How do we find new creative applications which maybe don't need quite as much scale? Mm-hmm. With that's a superpower that I think is really hard to beat. I think at Genmo, or kind of a perspective, is the left brain of AI, logical reasoning engines. That's really being dominated by more closed players because it benefits so much from scale. Video generative models also benefit a lot from scale. We will continue to scale these models to their limit. You can also get really creative on the right brain. You can build pipelines. You can integrate multiple models together. You can chain image generation models, which can be much more efficient with a video generation model. That is where I think our strategy a little bit differs from scaling a monolithic language model, is that you can actually build these really cool pipelines with many different ecosystem players integrated together.
Yeah, I think that's incredible to like see the different approaches as well. I think some video models already, there's like lines between what they can do, and maybe movement, maybe maybe coherency, maybe like different things. I saw a bunch of comparisons between these models as well, and those are very interesting. I suggest folks follow some of the folks who just like take the four. And there's been quite a lot lately. Oh my God, we were waiting for Sora for such a long time. It looked like Sora kicked off this like excitement about models, and now we're having. I personally have trouble selecting which model that I want to use for which use case as well. So AJ, thanks so much for coming up. I wanted to ask about just diffusion stuff. So I know you work in diffusion for a lot of time. I want to use your expertise as well. So there's been a bunch of news about diffusion world as well. Stable Diffusion released. It doesn't seem like they're beating Flux on many things. There's a bunch of like specific like feature releases from a diagram releasing Canvas and Midjourney, announcing like an editor that people finally like, okay, I can edit pictures with Midjourney, and that looks super cool. The thing that like moves the field, it feels like OpenAI's new sampler paper. Have you had a chance to look at this? Any chance that they can tap into your like experience here?
Yes, the consistency model paper.
Yes.
I'm a fan of consistency models. I'm a fan of distillation. It makes these models much more economical.
So this is only about speed and sampling speed, or is there like a quality improvement there as well?
Yeah, so I haven't looked at detail on their latest paper. I mean, it's been so hectic with the launch, weekend implementation tasks. But in the past works, consistency models have been about two things. They have had a speed improvement. So you can take a pre-trained diffusion model and distill it into a few step or one step generator with a consistency distillation procedure. The second approach is actually really interesting, is could you train a model which has comparable quality to a diffusion model, but from the beginning only actually does one step. So those are kind of the two branches of the road. You can train a diffusion model that has many steps and distill it into a one-step generator, or could you directly train a key one step? I think they push a lot on the second direction. Consistency models offer a route to that. I haven't yet seen consistency models beat diffusion models in sample quality if you have a large computational budget at inference time.
Awesome. So first of all, thank you so much for this shared expertise. This is incredible. I think folks really enjoyed it. And but it feels to me the comparison between like distilling a bigger model into a smaller model versus training one from scratch. That's the kind of the thing we see in the LLM world as well now. We see like folks like training up to 8 billion parameters or distilling like a bigger model, and it's still unclear which one beats which. So very interesting, like a new paper from OpenAI. I wanted to ask you, like as a follow-up, do diffusion practices, do diffusion new techniques are generally applicable to video as well, or does video need like specific new things, or is it all just more compute for like image stuff? Well, for example, would this sampling method, if it turns out to be good for like large models as well, will also improve video and like speed of generation of video?
Yes. So yeah, it's actually like a co-design training and sampling. So they have to retrain the model from scratch, but it would totally be applicable to video, I think. Video has a lot of new challenges and other research problems which are unanswered and we're working on. So it's kind of like image challenges plus.
Yeah.
But a lot of the technology will still transfer over. Findings about the best losses, the best objectives, the best ways to stabilize training. They all transfer. If something's not stable for image generation, generally I find it's not going to be stable for video generation either.
So no hands yet, no coherent hands yet.
We can do hands with Mochi one.
Oh, nice.
Check out my Twitter. We have some videos. I think I'm really impressed by it.
Alrighty. AJ, maybe like a last thing here is a shout out to maybe folks, and then we'll ask Noah about the other video model. And also like, what are the next steps? You said the HD version coming soon. I know that like Runway released a model and then released a turbo model that like does it faster. I think Kling maybe as well. Do you guys have plans for something like this? We'd love to hear like your next steps before we move on.
We're working with the community, listening to the community. If you have feedback, please, message me at me. The things we're hearing from the community are twofold. One is higher resolution. That's really key. So we can use these videos in production. And the second is making it more efficient, faster, at least runnable on your hardware, and then over time more economical. So those are the two problems we're pretty focused on right now. And we hope to share good results this year.
Awesome. AJ, thank you so much for joining, and congrats on the launch and the release. And the big shout out is for the open source. We love open source here on ThursdAI. Feel free, you're now considered friend of the pod. Feel free to come back once you guys release multiple more things. And really shout out to the whole team for this as well. Noah, I want to welcome you as well. Folks know you already. You are somewhat involved with Rhymes AI as well. So Rhymes released.
Yes.
Yeah, you want to give us like a 2 minutes on Rhymes?
Yeah. Yeah, sure. So they're basically a very small team, and actually, they're if you look at their paper, they're actually only a team of 4 people, and which is actually amazing. And also, they're on a smaller scale. They only have like 250 graphics card to train this model, so they're like smaller. They're only like a 3 billion parameter BID model. And also, I have actually one question for AJ. Congratulations on the release. So basically, in the past week, we also see works like the Janus from DeepSeek, and also this new model called Emus 3, which basically just one model do the next token prediction, but it can also generate videos. So I'm just curious, like, what's your take on this?
Next token prediction is. Oh, I want to say I'm a little jealous of next token prediction. Diffusion lab. You see this thing in diffusion models where you train a model and the loss is pretty noisy, and maybe it takes a lot of resources to converge, but it eventually gets much more detailed, I think, than the state-of-the-art next token prediction models apply to image and video. Next token prediction is much more stable to train. You kind of see a loss converging, it's interpretable, and it's scalable. So I think in the future, we might start to see hybridizations where you do really massive autoregressive modeling at some point, do reasoning, because there's a lot of reasoning and visual problems, followed by some diffusion components to bring it to reality.
Speaking of seeing like loss rates as well, AJ, I know you guys use weights and biases. I will not let you go before I get a soundbite out of you. Could you give us like a thing on how you use weights and biases and what's impossible, etc.? Would love to hear something on this topic from you.
I love weights and biases. Been using it since grad school. Really powerful. Just froth it in, get your metrics log. The thing I like the most is video logging.
Yes.
It's spamming your servers with tons of videos. Then we get a slider to see how the model's learning, see, as the physics emerge, as coherent objects emerge, how that evolves right in our web browser. So shout out to Warren B.
Yeah, shout out to 1B. Folks, Edge is specifically talking about weights and biases models, what we used to call just weights and biases, because now we have two big products, and models is being like absolutely universally loved. AJ, thank you for coming up. Nuo, you want to give us like a minute on Allegro as well? Because I want to hear about Allegro, because it also a video generation model, also dropped.
Yeah,
I don't know the license. I would love to hear about the license and just generally the approach maybe.
Oh, the license is also Apache 2.0.
Amazing.
And also they are having a hackathon event. They're holding one. So hopefully with LabAI. So hopefully, the audience can join us. I think from my, talk with my colleagues, and I think they're really focused on their paper. So I really encourage people to look at their paper. So basically how they pre-process all these, training data. I think that many, secret recipes in there, and also their parameters and how they do the processing. Because, for me, what I see in language models is that it seems that all the language models are converging towards the same point, right? About using the similar methodologies, and it's no longer a secret. But for like diffusion models, for video generation, it still remains to be a secret. So I really encourage people to look at their paper. I think it's very nicely written, and I think it only takes them like a week to do so. To draft the paper, the tech report. So it's kind of amazing.
Incredible. Thank you, Nuo. Thank you for coming up. Shout out to ThursdAI also for releasing this in Apache 2. 720 p, 720 pixels resolution at 15 FPS, and you can explore some of the generations, which is sorely missing. I think one of the biggest things, and maybe AJ, maybe this is as feedback, one of the biggest things about Midjourney, one of the biggest things about Stable Diffusion is that collaborative editing in their discords led to many people explore kind of the latent space in prompting area. And this is like, at least for me right now, happens on X, but nobody posts video and then like a long prompt as well. And it's missing for me to know like how prompts are done for these video models. It would be cool to have something. So Rhymes looks like they have a gallery as well. All right, folks, we're moving on from the video category because we have super quickly to cover voice and audio. And I think we're almost at time. No, we're nearly at time, but let's say we started later. So we'll go for a bit later. Thank you, AJ, for coming. Thank you, Noah, for chiming in. Other news from, I think I mentioned this briefly, but like I think it's just super cool. The Puppetry Act 1 model from Runway just seems like a different model than just video generation. Because first of all, the video models that we know and love are text to video or maybe image to video, sometimes both. This one is a video to video type thing where basically they're taking a character that you create and they're basically transferring your face movements, your emotions. What used to be in Hollywood, like for example, if you think about Avatar, for example, there's a whole array of cameras and dots on the actors' faces to be able to give you that emotion in the act. So they can 3D model the avatars, whatever, but they have actors like doing the actual acting, human actors doing the actual acting. And this is kind of similar to this. Act 1 is this like model from Runway about generative character performances, and they use a single driving video and then a character image. So instead of like, instead of asking the model to generate, you give it the video and a one image of the character, and basically animate this character. Wolfram, we've talked about multiple kind of Halo 2 and like animation things. I wanted to hear from you. Did you see the Act 1 stuff? What do you think? What are your thoughts on this?
Oh, I wanted to download it already, or at least try it. So I was looking for that because my notes are so messed up. There's so much stuff happening. Yes. I couldn't find it. So it was Act 1. I couldn't find it. Yeah. I'm writing it down on paper now.
Act 1.
That's what I need.
So you write it down on paper. Folks who subscribe to ThursdAI will get all of the links of all of the models that we talk about. But I just wanted to like tell you guys in the newsletter that I'll send. I'll add some examples. It's a new tech from them. Single driving video. It transfers eye line movements and micro expressions and pacing and delivery. I think all of those things. I remember that 11 Labs, which we're going to talk about in a second as well, they did something similar for audio. So you know how you can like create TTS audio, and TTS audio is like, it has its own emotion, but it's not necessarily what you want. It doesn't do comedic pauses, for example. It doesn't do all kinds of stuff like this. 11 Labs did something similar for video, so I really wonder if those two can be combined. I need to invite our friend Amar Rishi from 11 Labs to actually talk about this. But I think that this doesn't actually move your audio. You are the actor, you talk. It just puts a different face on you and transform, like micro expressions. It just looks incredible. So no motion capturing, no rigging is what Hollywood does for this. I think it unlocks a new frontier, and really big shout out to Runway for this, for innovating in the space. Really like a huge one. This is it in video. One thing in vision that SAM 2.1 released. It's more efficient segment anything model. It improves significantly on the previous SAM. So shout out to Meta for like giving us continuous updates in this area. But we don't have that much time to focus on this. But SAM, we've covered a lot with a friend from Peroskowski. So we are going to briefly mention voice and audio because we're almost at time. I've already mentioned OpenAI custom voice support. Simon, I wanted to hear from you. Have you had chance to play with the chat completion voice API? I know you did, and we briefly mentioned this, but I want to hear from you if you still have a few minutes for us about the custom voice support in the chat completion specifically.
Yeah, I dug around quite a bit with that last week. It's, I mean, honestly, it all comes down to cost, right? It's super easy to use. It's exactly the same thing as that image API. You know, you can send it, you can take a WAV or an MP3, base 64 encode that and send that in a JSON, or you can send it a URL to a WAV or MP3 file hosted somewhere, and it will do the useful things. You know, it can transcribe audio.
Oh, I didn't know you can send a URL. That's incredible. So you can send bytes, but you also can like pass like an already uploaded WAV or thing?
You know what? I've not tried it myself, so I won't promise it works, but I think the documentation mentions that. But anyway, you can get audio into the thing, and it can do stuff like it can tell. I tried doing acting out being sarcastic to see if it could tell if I was being sarcastic or not. But I'm not a very good voice actor, and I think my British accent might have thrown it off a little bit. But a friend of mine recorded some better voice acting, and we did manage to get a little bit of sort of intonation, like analysis from it, so forth. So it can do things. And the other thing you can do is the audio output mode, where effectively you tell it, you should respond in audio, and then it gives you back a giant base 64 encoded WAV file. Like I got 460 kilobytes of JSON back from it for like a 10-second clip. The problem is the cost is crazily expensive.
Crazy expensive.
And especially when you compare it to Google Gemini. Like I've been using Google Gemini's like Flash and Flash 8B are both weirdly inexpensive. They can accept audio and they can do all of these things.
There's a soundbite here that I'm looking for you. I think that I saw this.
Yep.
They support up to... Yeah, tell me, please.
No, go for it.
I think that somebody mentioned this. For the free tier, it's 1 million tokens a minute of Gemini Flash. Is that correct?
I think so. Yeah, it's like basically
it's wild.
It's free to have these things, and even if you're paying, Gemini Flash 8B is 1,066 times cheaper than OpenAI's for audio inputs. 1,000. I had to run those calculations 3 times, and then I had to build myself a calculator app because I didn't believe what I was seeing. But yeah, so unfortunately, I think the OpenAI audio stuff is almost unusable. Like, why would you use that when it's so much cheaper to do a transcription through a less expensive model, feed in the transcription? And for generating audio, there are plenty of really good audio, like text-to-speech things now, which are less expensive than the OpenAI option as well. I'm not sure what's going on there.
I will say that the advanced voice mode, which is what we're talking about, where we're getting the API, this is an incredible model. It can sing, it can act, it can generate audio like samples, but like they close down on all of those features.
Don't let it.
Yeah. So we're basically getting a very fancy TTS out of this, and the emotion understanding also. And I see Chris Gardenia here in Christian. We tested the advanced voice mode when it was in alpha, and I played like a sound, like a scratch sound. I played like a womp womp trumpet. It identifies sound effects as well, so it definitely can understand emotion, 100%. It understands sound effects. They clamp down on those features as well. So on the input, this is basically like a fancy whisper. The only thing is maybe it can understand multi-talking voices, and I don't know if like regular transcript can. But on the
I
output,
think it can, yeah. It is better than Whisper. It's just way more expensive as well.
yes.
But I did figure out one trick. I haven't tried this through the API yet, but it turns out you can get ChatGPT Advanced Voice Mode to do different accents. And so if you wanted to perform characters, you can be like, okay, the walrus has a Russian accent and the pelican has an Australian accent, and it's like almost like it's almost offensive, but it's really fun.
So in the audience, Cristiano, if you don't mind leaving a comment, we had a chat with Advanced Voice Mode before it came out, and we asked it for a 2-character story, and one of the characters was like a very squeaky story. Like the video was like cracking up when it like broke out this like crackly like a very small sound, which sound was really hilarious. Like yeah, it can go hilarious. But speaking of this, in the voice and audio category, 11 Labs just literally yesterday released a creative voices with a prompt thingy, and it can get there as well. So you can create those voices maybe ahead of time, but if you think about production use cases, you would also create those prompts ahead of time. You would basically prompt this new Advanced Voice Mode to do the little squeaky sound, or to do the one. And now that you have this ability from 11 Labs, which is new by the way, and shout out to them, and I have a video on this yesterday. Why would you pay $200 per 1 million tokens for OpenAI? Like I really don't see the reason.
It's really confusing. Like I think, I don't understand why OpenAI is so uncompetitively priced on this. It makes a lot more sense for the real-time API, because the real-time API can handle like interruption and things like that. Yeah. That's clearly the one where if you're spinning up a like remote customer service phone support, that's probably worth the money at that point. But for those of us who don't have a sort of a financially profitable reason to use these models, they're almost too expensive to even play with.
It could be on purpose. It could be that they don't want this model to be used in call centers and convincing people to buy things. I don't know. I will say this, Simon. So you talked about getting a huge binary file back. This API does support streaming. So like token streaming, like they support audio streaming as well. I have code that I implemented this, so you can technically get it to very close to real time. So it doesn't have to like generate. You don't have to wait for the whole file. You stream chunk by chunk, and you collect those chunks into like just a binary whatever, and you can stream those outputs.
Oh,
yeah,
that makes sense, because that's why it's doing WAV format, right? Like I was wondering why WAV.
So WAV will give you a whole file, but PCM16, if you set it to PCM, you could start streaming those chunk by chunk.
Oh, that's cool. I haven't seen that. Yeah. That's really interesting.
I'll share some code with you and you guys also in the audience. And it also supports Weave, so you can stream this and then send it to Weave. So this is new from OpenAI from last week, but we played with this, and yeah, that's awesome. But I think the 11 Labs thing is also kind of like coming for this specific use case from the other side as well, where let's say this offering for OpenAI does 2 things well. First of all, it's like Whisper, but way more advanced, because this model is native voice understanding, so you can send audio clips into it and have it like tell you what's going on, etc. You shouldn't do this. Sorry, OpenAI, but like Simon, I think you'd agree. You shouldn't do this if you care about money. You should go to Gemini. You should go to like, right? And the other thing it does is the emotive outputs on the TTS, so it's not like TTS, and that you should definitely try 11 Labs for, because 11 Labs create voices thing is just incredibly cool. The voices that I did and the skeleton project that I told you about in Halloween that I keep going, and finally Halloween is coming very, very soon next week. I was able to generate a very spooky skeleton voice with just a prompt, and I actually should add this to the show notes as well, maybe pin this on stage. And I was able within like minutes within 11 Labs to generate this voice. And now this is a voice that I can use. And so instead of like pre-selecting voices or cloning, this is a completely new custom voice that you did with a prompt, and that's super cool. Moonlight is the last thing that I want to cover here, but I don't have notes for this. Wolfram, do you want to do like a minute on Moonlight for audio?
Yeah, I misspoke before, so I said, what did I say? Moonshine? Or
Moonshine, yeah.
But the real name is, it's Moonshine, yeah.
Moonshine, yeah.
Moonshine,
so I misspoke, yeah, Moonshine, yeah.
Yeah, I misspoke before as well. So it's a new family of open source text-to-speech models, and it's supposedly 5 times faster than Whisper Base, but at least as accurate. And it's currently Whisper is only 30-second length audio, and Moonshine does not have a length limit. That is quickly.
Yeah,
putting
you
it
can
together.
transcribe more, just to be clear for folks. You can transcribe way more with Whisper, just like the chunks they send into the model, 30 seconds.
Chunks.
And then you have to pass the previous chunk to the next chunk for context as well. So it's like a whole setup. So you're saying this model doesn't have those limitations, which was pretty cool. And folks, I think that the last thing we have to cover, but we're really out of time and we're really over the time, is the AI art and diffusion world. So I'm just going to run through them quickly in the TLDR section. But basically we have Stable Diffusion 3.5, which is like, honestly, with all my love to stability, kicking off especially my career and many people's like AI careers, like releasing a model that is barely scratching state of the art on one specific metric is kind of like, come on guys, come on. But 3.5, Stable Diffusion 3.5 was released. It looks very authentic and realistic. And other things, we talked about the new sampler method, the consistency model paper that we covered from OpenAI, and the two new updates for folks who are using these models is Ideogram Canvas, which is a whole new way of using these models. You don't just generate things, you upload your own things, you mix and match between multiple images, extending existing images beyond the original borders, and Magic Fill for specific regions. And Midjourney released like an editor as well. So like both of the competitive kind of like product companies in this, Ideogram and Midjourney, both are model labs, but they're also product labs. They are all releasing editors as well. So you can use these models now, but for the longest time, like Comfy UI and like other things built tools for the open source. So now Midjourney is catching up with an editor, but they're limiting it to only like subscribers for like the past year, members with 10,000 images. So a very interesting approach from Midjourney. So those are the news from the art world. And I think we have managed to cover this insane week of news in AI, including some guests. And so we're way over time. So let's say for 2 hours, I'll briefly do what I usually do. I'll do a TLDR, and then we'll end on this, and we'll go and see other new, I'll let you go on Thursday. So let's do a brief TLDR. For folks who came into the middle of this, you'll be able to hear this. For folks who couldn't hear me before due to my microphone issues, that's for you as well. And if you've been to us throughout the show, please feel free to stick around or, put it on background. So not just generating imagery, but also editing them as well. And this was all, folks. Just a little bit of a chill week here in the corner of like following after everything that happened in AI. I really want to thank everybody who stuck together almost 2.5 hours. Damn. Thank you so much. My thank yous go first of all to Joe from ThursdAI. We're having a ThursdAI here in Seattle. Joe and Killian invited me, so I'm going to do a demo. So if you're in Seattle, please come and check this out. Also, come to our hackathon. But thank you for hosting me in an actual physical space in Seattle. This is great. But also, Simon, thank you so much for joining and chatting to us about everything. Wolfram, thank you. Yam was here as well. AJ was here, and Nuo from Genmo, and Nuo from O1AI, and a bunch of other folks. And obviously, everyone who tunes in and listens and shares and comments and subscribes and gives me feedback and tells me, hey, this new model release, and tags me. I appreciate every single one of you. This is fun for me, if not because of just knowing everything in the AI, but also because following the community, seeing it incredibly build. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. This has been ThursdAI. I'm going to let you go for the rest of your week. And if you missed any part of it, please follow the newsletter or the podcast. See you next week. Bye-bye.
Talented.